It is finally springtime. It is a good time for napping. Actually, I almost fell asleep before stream. If only, if only was that easy every single time, right? Sadly, it's not. But maybe that's on me. Maybe I should be more reasonable with my resting time. Me being reasonable? Nah, that's a good joke, isn't it? uh, I do need to sleep a little bit more, as usual. My back has been struggling for far too long. It's not just because I'm getting old, I promise. Though I kinda believe that may be relevant to some extent. It's also true that maybe my form while exercising is not the best, which is also somewhat of a problem. I would agree to that. Uh, I kind of feel like this week has been a little bit strange. Maybe because I've been doing some stuff and not paying attention. A lot of attention to some things, maybe. That strange, I suppose. But I don't think today is gonna be that long. I mean, Saturday was meant to be about 2 hours. Lately, we've been doing 2.5, 3, or even more constantly. We need to go back to normalcy a little bit. I think that's normal. I think that's understandable. I do believe I might, only might, but I might have fixed some of my issues with YouTube, thankfully. We'll see if that happens or not. I mean, trying to play the YouTube game, at the end of the day, it's nothing more than Gamba. We love Gamba, but sometimes the Gamba's always against you. It's not that great, honestly. But I guess it could be worse. Okay, is everything running here properly? I think so. We need to run some music. So we have for today autumn music. Autumn Pokemon music, but it's a beautiful day to study, work, relax. It's kind of funny. This week, what anime was it that I was watching while exercising? The Daily Grind of a 29-year-old adventurer, I think. It's been a really fun anime. They also had some sort of autumn festival, and I thought, hey, that's a bit strange. It's about to become a spring. Well, it's spring now. But I guess it's Japan, and for Japan, autumn or fall, however you're gonna call it, means festival time. Uh, what about Hanami? Well, there's a lot of people, and it's really expensive. It's really expensive if you want to go to Japan. I remember a friend of mine went to Japan during, and that, I guess, hello? Hello? Holy, hello? Firefox, what's wrong with you, pal? Stop joking on me, man. My goodness, this is awful. It was March, but it was early March. Between late February and early March. Thankfully, he went with the Japanese school, because god damn it, that would have been really expensive otherwise. I don't think it was cheap anyway, but hey. He got to go to Japan during anime time, kinda. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Okay, that's my stuff here. That's the wrong thing. I keep pressing the wrong thing. I am a fool. Okay. Alright, that's a bunch of frames lost due to encoding lag. But I don't have any dropped frames, so I'm assuming it was before starting a stream. That's the case. Also, let me actually activate the That's the body for once, okay? Everybody can have some music here, not just my pearly voice. It's surprising to me how some people can stand it. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's my stuff. Sometimes I'm surprised how jarring I can sound. But I guess that's fine. Okay, what do we have for today? Well, we have, for starters, a strange piece here. Let me bring it up. I think this is really stupid, just in general. This one? This one. companies. Just a bunch of memes. The DNA of the soul. Not the good kind, I think. We have this. vtuber agency trademarks envtuber. It's not actually envtuber. This is Japan, so it's crosstuber. I can tell you, people in the West will read this as envtuber and extrapolate the wrong ideas. But maybe they're actually the right ideas. It's a new creator category. Yeah, let me check my volume here. Is it too loud? I want it to be a little bit lower. It feels a little bit loud on my ears. I don't want this to be too overbearing. 8% receiving enough video to maintain a smooth streaming. It's not my fault, pal. It's not my fault. Big if true. Yeah, it's probably fine, right? It's probably mostly okay. Open widget. Do I open this? And see what happens? I'm a little bit scared. It's YouTube. But yeah, I don't think that is true. I don't think that is correct. I guess that may be one of those days after all. YouTube. Why are you like this? The Japanese company has trademarked crosstuber, a new hybrid creator category, and is now accepting applications. On March 16, 2026, the Japanese company Pandora announced that it had registered the trademark for the term crosstuber, which is what is crosstuber in Japanese. The reading media. It's just like pretty cross on, right? People will see that and they're gonna be like, kind of content that these people make, right? Well, that's something I find appropriate, but then again, a lot of people do it, so I guess it's fine. I still don't think it's correct. Similar to VTubing, but with a twist. Still relying solely on a virtual avatar, creators can also stream or appear in real-life content. Indies have been doing this for a while, and I don't think that is actually a great idea. What does the V in VTuber mean again? Vampire? Valentine? Victory? I'm not quite sure. It's supposed to be virtual, right? So why are you showing the flash? Why am I once again seeing flash? I don't understand it. I don't like it. Make it stop. I might understand some flash, right? Like, oh, hand cams and all that. I think that's fine. I think that's correct, but how many times have you seen full-blown face? Way too many. I don't think it should be done. It kind of fits the purpose of the meeting itself. What do I know? It's no secret that a lot of VTubers have already been doing this in some form. This is the first time there's actually been a proper term for it. And one that is officially trademarked too. I mean, some people call it, mixed? I'm not quite sure. Like, mixed content or mixed tubing? I think mixed tubing is not actually correct. Hey, Bray, how you doing? It's Saturday, so we're talking about the staff and getting caught up with current events. Welcome. I have to admit that being trademarked is really suspicious. Not great and not necessary. I don't think anybody trademarked the term vtuber, which is strange to me. So I wonder what's going on with this. Some people have been calling this a little bit of trolling because of the just the idea that you can trademark such a concept. Concluding saying, Japanese company Pandora is accepting applications for crosstubers. Every single time I want to read this envtubers. But then again, if they're making real life content, both could be correct. Along with the announcement, the company also explained the background behind the trademark, noting that while the market for virtual performers has been rapidly expanding, there's still no clear definition for creators who operate across both the virtual and real worlds. Maybe those people should be purged, but maybe that's just me. Once again, it kind of fits the purpose. If you want to be a fleshy, just be a fleshy. If you want to be a VTuber, be a VTuber. Why do you want to be both at the same time? I've seen several damning accusations against some people, right? This is just the usual, how do they call those? The e-girls trying to get a broader audience thanks to anime. I don't think it's necessarily incorrect when they say that, but I'm also sure it's not every single one of them. I do agree that hey, there's some real life content that you may want to do, but you can still do that as a VTuber, right? I do remember it's been a while since we saw this strange character arc, I suppose, with Pippa. But she showed a Japanese VTuber that did camping streams as a VTuber, and you didn't see any flash. That was rather unique, but it can be done. You just need to try it. I think that's gonna be somewhat the theme for today. Just need to try it, which might be too hard for some. Not any spoilers, despite the PS1 in thumbnail being a little bit too obvious if you've been on the internet this past week, at least on Twitter. Yeah, the tweet here. CrossTuber. So the term... See? I was about to say Xtuber again. I don't do this on purpose. The term CrossTuber refers to creators who can move between real-life streams and traditional avatar-based content. Fully blending both styles. Fully blending both styles. This reminds me about who was it? Onigiri, I think. She does, or she did at least. I don't know if she still does them. Cooking streams, but you would see a mix of the hands and the model, which was somewhat interesting. Women going to the kitchen. What do you mean by this? I mean, I don't think it's interesting content anyway. The company's mission is to guide as many talents as possible into becoming CrossTubers worldwide. To support this, they've also launched a program called Project Yohane, right? Because it's Japanese. And Hane is a Japanese word. But I don't think that Yohane is also a Western name? Maybe I'm looking too much into it. To help more people get started by removing common entry barriers like cost, technical skills, and the setup needed to start the streaming. I'm gonna be real, pal. It's not that deep. Sure, if you want a real specific model, it might take you more work, but it's far from impossible. Okay? If an idiot like me can do this, anybody can. I'm actually a fucking idiot, and I don't think so. I could be. I do have pretty obvious... how do they call this? I do like skills, obviously, in many places. I don't think I'm that bad. I must miss this. Not only that, also offer support for monetization through streaming. Oh god, oh boy, is this like... What were the names again? There were these companies back in the day on YouTube, like Mashnim and all those. They had a specific name. Hold up. If I look the company, they will probably mention it, right? Gamer culture. Animation technique, that's not what I mean. I don't mean the company. There were like conglomerates of content creators. Cinematic makes more sense. Networks, entertainment networks. Yeah, I don't think that that everything I'm saying is correct. They changed that in 2006. That makes sense. Yeah, they were all over the place on YouTube, and I don't know if all of them, but I would say most of them were really predatory. So make of that what you will. I remember some creators I watched back in the day stepping away from these networks and actually losing the rights to their content when they were actually in the network. That sounds a little bit scary. Hey, it sounds familiar to some extent, but in this company it makes more sense because they can own the characters, I was saying. You might disagree with that. I understand both sides. It's just the nature of the beast. The program is open to anyone, including complete beginners, with additions focusing on motivation and potential for V activities. Envtuber with the V activities, this is getting too spicy. We cannot get this explicit, okay? According to the company, the selection process includes an application review followed by an online interview. Only those who pass can join, though, and applications will close on slots are filled. And normal VTuber corporate stuff. You don't need to have any prior streaming experience to apply, but didn't mention that applicants must be at least 18 years old. Well, I would hope so. Every single time we've seen content creators, especially in VTubing, that are minors, has always been a massive problem. Holy shit. It's open to all genders and there's no need to show your face either. There's no need to show your face either. I mean, is this vtuber or not? I'm also assuming this is just JP alright, because it's a JP company. It's probably normal. I don't know, it kind of feels they're trying to rediscover the whale, which it is kind of funny to me. But I guess not that surprising. I feel like that has been somewhat common recently too, right? Companies trying to do something that's been around for a while. Wow, we made this! Hell do you mean you made this? How is this new? Well, it really isn't, right? But he's gonna tell them. He's gonna tell them. But not everything is just strange stuff in a just confusing way with these companies. It's also strange stuff in, okay, but why derogatory in companies recently? Hold up. My head was a little bit itchy. Please understand. So we have here 8.86% of Kadokawa, now owned by international activist investor Oasis Management. Hong Kong based, that's still China, I'm sorry. Term Oasis Management Company has acquired 8.86% stake in Front Software parent company Kadokawa. Oh. Oh. Is this the same? Might be the same. I thought they were different articles. That's funny. Oasis Management Company, a Hong Kong-based international hedge fund management firm, has acquired a large number of shares in Japanese anime, manga, and game publisher Kadokawa, as reported by GameBiz. According to reports submitted to the Kanto Local Finance Bureau, it's the Kanto region, on March 19th, after buying over 30 million shares. 30 million shares, just an insane number to me. Oasis has acquired an 8.86% stake in Kadokawa, setting the 5% threshold for large shareholders. The purpose of Oasis's acquisition of shares is described as portfolio investment, as well as important proposal activities. Of course it is. Are things going to change? Probably. For the best, it never happens. But management company is known to be an activist investor, not to be confused with political activism, which is an important distinction. The term refers to companies that seek to buy significant stakes in companies in order to influence how they are managed. Then again, isn't really that different. Not really. They're here to change things. And this is China, so yeah, I'm not looking forward to this. Usually with the purpose of increasing shareholder returns. I would guess that China would be for actual shareholder returns. Actual returns for once, but you never know. Oasis has recently shown interest in and exerted pressure over several major Japanese companies like Nidec, it's Japanese, it's Nidec, right? And Kao Corporation in the game industry. Found also owns a stake in Nintendo, which is famous in order to immediately enter the mobile market back in 2014. Huh. So it was their fault, I say. Disgusting behavior from China. What else is new? You have to admit that getting too much into mobile games has been a disaster for gaming in general. I don't like it. Therefore, it must be evil. To be fair, you only need to see some newer games and their design philosophies. I don't think they just work as games anymore, or in general. I don't think I'm insane when I say this, but I do think I'm insane most of the time. So what do I know? Against the Kadokawa, the formation important proposals by Oasis are described as being in the interest of protecting shareholder value. Although nothing specific has been announced so far, besides being a major publisher of manga and light novels, Kadokawa is also the parent company of enterprise developer Front Software and owner of several domestic anime studios. It remains to be seen whether and in what ways Oasis will seek to influence the company's leadership. And I'm assuming this is the same article, but this is from IGN. Yeah, but they mentioned something really spicy here, so there's still value for me showing this up. Moreover, Sony, activist investor, who urged Nintendo to charge 99 cents just to get Mario to jump higher, acquired significant stake in parent company filter in dev From Software. Hard times. Well, don't you think Dark Souls is a hard game? Now it's gonna become a true ball-busting experience. You're gonna get more health from the Estus flasks? How about you actually pay with your humanity in real life, not in game? Oh, that is really scary, isn't it? But they do have some replies here. Okay, they spent some information here. I think this might still be valuable. However, Oasis' past moves have included attempts to sway Nintendo. Back in 2014, Oasis published an open letter to the Nintendo president Satoru Iwata, urging the Japanese company to enter the mobile games market and to focus on that instead of consoles. You disgust me to no end, China. It's Netflix and other companies' success as examples. They argued that accessibility was key. See what I mean? This term has become an absolute slur at this point. Just in Nintendo sell mobile games featuring popular IPs like Mario and Zelda and Google Play and Apple App Store. Instead of having their games behind the hurdle of purchasing a console. Oh, the hurdle of purchasing a console. Holy shit, dude. Foreshadowing. It's too real, man. It's too real. It was not on purpose. This is not pre-read, as you can see. None of these IPs have actually benefited from going into the mobile market. If anything, they have become worse. Best example of this? Pokemon. Another good example of this? Fire Emblem, of all things, which is not an IP I'm really fond of, mainly because of the fans. The games are okay. Washington suggested that Nintendo should release free-to-play mobile games with in-game purchases. The chief investment officer, Seth Fisher... What about Seth Fishy? Issuing the immortal line. That's scary. We believe Nintendo can create very profitable games based on in-game revenue models with the right development team. Just think of paying 99 cents just to get Mario to jump a little higher. You people disgust me to no end. You people are the malady of video games. And I want every single one of you out of my fucking planet, okay? Don't want to see the likes of you ever again. After this letter, Nintendo continues to develop consoles, releasing the highly successful Nintendo Switch and the successor to the Switch 2. However, it also entered the realm of smartphone offerings. Although whether this had anything to do with Oasis's suggestions in 2013 and 2014 is unclear. Nintendo, the Pokemon Company, released the global hit Pokemon Go in 2016, with Super Mario Run also hitting mobile platforms in the same year. Wasn't Super Mario Run free to start? That means you can play for free in the beginning, but quickly if you want to play. Not progress faster or to get special content, but to actually play new stuff, you need to pay. That is truly disgusting too. Last month it was reported that Blue Point, the studio behind the successful Shadow of the Colossus and Demon's Souls remakes, pitched a Bloodborne remake last year that was rejected not by Sony, as many had thought, but by From Software. From Software is currently working on The Dash Bloods, similarly vampire-themed game exclusive to Nintendo Switch 2, and continues to add the multiplayer game and the Ring Night Train. To be fair, from what I'm seeing, the Demon's Souls remake is actually pretty disgusting. Completely destroys the aesthetics, which is something that should never happen. But it happens every single time with remakes, so why should be surprised? Well, we are not really surprised. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's the actual problem. These people are insanely greedy. They're creating those no bans. That's insane to me. Ugh. Way back. So, can we expect Dark Souls on the phones? Maybe. Maybe not. Who knows? What did I mention here? Okay, so by best. Sure, this new ownership is only concerned if you don't understand board corporate accounting and finance, which does not have significant influence. Erwin Klaus. They do have significant influence because they have more than 5%. Erwin Klaus devoted about 10% of a holding company that only owns 70% of From Software. Sony owns 14% of FromSoft directly and 11% of Kadokawa, No one can tell FromSoft what to do by themselves. Oasis generally has the same amount of influence. FromSoft as a viral social media post. I don't think this is actually downplaying the current situation. They do have voting power. They can propose stuff. It's not nothing, right? Is the company gonna just fall down, burning? Probably not. Not right now, at least. It's too soon for that, of course. But I don't think this is a good indication of things to come in general. Not so much from Soft themselves, but Kadokawa, and what that might mean for anime and manga. I think that's more concerning. Exploitation is the final form of unchecked capitalism. The product only gets so good, only gets so many buyers. I mean, Saiji, you shouldn't be surprised if I see fucking comments here. A hedge fund management firm with a bench hand for insider trading and balling its weight for board control. What can go wrong? Yeah, that's pretty bad too. Pretty bad my Western by Black Road says this about someone. Okay, this is kind of funny, right? But if you've seen anything about investing, not that I know too much about this, to be fair. You will see the likes of BlackRock and Vanguard. Oh, they're so evil. They're literally everywhere. Because they're massive, and they don't like money, despite pushing insane agendas. So they put themselves into every single possible company, so they can always win. And that doesn't mean they can vote, or they have significant parts of every single company. It's not as scary as it sounds, but it's still a little bit scary, I will agree to that. They will never make a mobile game and charge to make Mary jump higher. They will require work for only 99 cents. They'd rather rip people off by porting Wii U games to Switch for $60 than porting those same games to Switch 2 for $70. That's a bigger screw job that makes more money and require less work. Kinda rough. Pay 99 cents to say, is this a dog? I don't get the reference. $7.99 for Try Finger Bundle, as it's a premium message. Oh! It's all games messages, yeah, that makes sense. And then get these. Get these! The letter said, focus on mobile games with microtransactions instead of making consoles. Then after the Switch launch. Meanwhile, Fire Emblem, Mario Kart Tour, Mario Jump, and Pokemon Go says, but yeah, Nintendo would never make cash in mobile games. Why is this guy that doesn't have any single like? He's correct. I have a similar idea. Public restrooms everywhere, but you had to pay 99 cents for each toilet paper square. That's just evil. And the company gave a shit what the 8% person says. Because that's how a company works. If you have more than 5% of shares, you have voting power. You are a... how do they call this? Hold up. You become a large shareholder. So you can actually decide some stuff. Of course, it's only 8.86, but they can propose stuff and they do have voting power. It is not nothing, once again. Not trying to be alarmist or anything like that, but... it's not nothing. Guy sounds like a knob, true and real. 100% please, my goodness. Going back to the days of renting video games. I thought some of them were more difficult, especially in the West. That's why you got less ink ribbons in Resident Evil, by the way. Isn't that funny? There were also other games that had this strange difficulty increase in the West, just because of that. Other games were ported from arcades, so they had strange increased difficulties because of that too. You're on your last credit, then the enemies become really aggressive, so you actually lose and spend more coins. Nothing has changed, but that felt actually more fair than this. Pong games, what a disaster. Then again, they are not the only ones. Study investment firm acquires a significant number of Capcom shares. Its purpose is supposedly pure investment. Sure thing. The third investment firm, Mix Foundation, is in its electronic gaming development company, NGDC branch, has acquired a significant number of shares in Capcom, according to GameBees. Thanks, Automaton! That's the possibility I found this article first, eh? Insane. Firm owned by Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Is this the gamer Arabian Prince? I'm not quite sure. Every single one of them is called Mohammed anyway, so I'm not sure. But I do think that bin Salman sounds familiar. Now owns a 5.03% stake in Capcom after acquiring 26,788,500 shares. Unfathomable. It has stressed, however, that its reason is for pure investment, which likely means it will simply earn profits from share increases. Which is understandable, it's a huge amount of shares for doing something like that. But it's a Saudi Arabian Crown Prince, so they can do it. When it comes as Capcom celebrates the remarkable success of Resident Evil Requiem, which just recently surpassed 6 million units sold, which is pretty good. The fastest indie title in the series has achieved such a milestone. Capcom's share price is currently on the rise, sitting at 3,562 Japanese yen at the time of writing. Capcom also has a heavy hitter in the form of Street Fighter 6, which will shortly welcome veteran fighter Alex into its roster by the year 3 Fighters Pass. 3 years already, holy shit. The Foundation, meanwhile, wholly owns game developer SNK, which is perhaps best known for fan franchises such as Fatal Fury and The King of Fighters, along with the 2D action series Metal Slug. Kind of a short article here, which is understandable. So I think maybe related to this a little bit, and I can say is they're not taking it. They are not taking it, but yeah, that's understandable. Some people, apparently, from the fighting game communities have been bemoaning this change, and apparently they're just leaving the communities, which is kind of funny. They appear to be from homosexual proclivities, so it kind of makes sense they wouldn't like these Muslim investors. But I do think it's kind of funny to some extent. They haven't done anything yet, and the gays are already out. Are we sure the Muslims are that bad? That's a joke. And that's a joke, come on. Didn't get that bad. Didn't get that nasty against me. Kinda funny to say, but then again, some of these strange communities have been filled with insane lunatics. So maybe it's actually a positive, despite this strange situation, investment-wise. We also have... I had to open this as an archive, it wasn't loading properly for me. But we have... Dragon Quest 12 leaks. They appear to be believable, because this appears to be from somebody that leaked some other Dragon Quest games. I'm gonna take this with a massive grain of salt though, because at the end of the day, we don't really know. Hold on, let me hook up something here before I forget. Oh, it didn't update. Cool. Cool. It's fine. It's machine translated because this is a Japanese website that I translated with Firefox, and they're using French tweets, so mistakes are respected. Dragon Quest 12 is finally linked. The main character is a woman at the stage of the world in front of Dragon Quest 9 and Dragon Quest 10. In front, meaning the game will take place between 9 and 10, as I understand it. Again, skip that. Dragon Quest 12's huge leak has popped out. That was the time of the 11th from the person who hit it all. So, the same person that leaked 11, I suppose. It was way before my time looking at those kinds of leaks, I wouldn't know. The stage of the game is the timeline of the Inhabitants of Heaven before 9 and 10, the climax of the Clival Empire. The main character is a girl, which I think is probably the first time it happens in Dragon Quest. Interesting. That means Square Enix after all. The game is developed in 3 acts as well as 11. The first act proceeds only in Morteza. There's a huge and huge slave market there. Here is the 12th slave born there, and the human Corvus, as we can see down here, is still 9th. The 10th is a sub-character, but Liquor does not know from anything from Dragon Quest X, because their mode is not done. I think they didn't finish the game. They might be still releasing stuff for Dragon Quest X, I'm not sure, never really got into the game. I will need to do it at some point. They're enamored with red hot iron on the back, which is the origin of the logo, and the importance of the flame of the first teaser from there. That makes sense. So oh, but there's a big place and they have a gigantic market of slaves. Corvus, human. Yeah, the Liquor didn't play thing, as far as I understand it. Corvus the first mate, which makes sense. Liquor describes the gameplay as fun but broken. For example, here in the tank command to the enemy can do 600 damage at level 15, which is an insanely amount of damage for Dragon Quest. But after that, your character will not be able to use attack in battle. One of the party members seems to be in the middle of the hall and can only use any commands in battle. The middle of the hall? The hell do you mean with this? You can deal 600 damage in area, I'm assuming zone, right? Oh! The middle of the hall. The alcoholic. I'm assuming this is an alcoholic. So an alcoholic that can only use items. Interesting. Interesting. We'll see about that. I'm quite curious about the game, but it would need to be insanely good for me to buy this on release. It's probably not happening. The rest of the gameplay is classic Dragon Quest turn-based, slashing in semi-open world, and Dragon Quest XI's transformation system is adapted to the series. This is the fortune system, which I thought it was interesting. 95% of the music and what? Oh, character design, of course. All written by Sugiyama and Toriyama, I suspect that Okabe from Nier composed 2 or 3 songs, and some of the character designs may have been made by Fenya. I'm not sure, but because even if you play for 135 hours, you haven't seen the end roll yet. They made the credits for this. I guess about half of the third act, and there's 2 parts of it, just... Okay, they may be saying that Act 3 might be longer than the other ones. Really, really long games. The game is a huge blockbuster for almost 70 years with no time escaping until Liquor reached. Wow, really? Hold up, 70 years? Yeah, it's written with a number. That's absolutely insane. The end of the first act was shocking and almost vomitable. I don't recommend it to sensitive people. But by the time of release, this part will be mildly modified to avoid controversy. Ah, classic. I mean, if they're a little bit serious, I think it's actually fine. The team is mainly focusing on graphics and bug fixes. It seems they have encountered a fair amount of bugs, I'm assuming. And the other parts are well finished. First run for Dragon Quest Day on May 27th, released in summer 2027. We'll see. This might be... comments. Korikori. Yeah. I mean... there's nothing wrong with having a female main character, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Of course not, but... it is Square Enix, and we understand their proclivities have been pretty obvious in recent times. So I'm a little bit suspicious of them for, I would say, pretty obvious reasons. I will need to know more about the game for sure to actually come out to an actual proper conclusion. once again, I had to say, this game needs to be really, really good for me to buy it on release. Especially because it's Square Enix, and we know what Square Enix has been doing for the past decade and a half. It's been too much. It's been way too much. You know what? Since we're actually cruising here, let me bring something up. It has to do with Square Enix, so I think it makes sense. Who mentioned this? I think Scratchpoint replied to somebody talking about this. I thought it was hilarious, but it kind of shows the current state of Square Enix, which is not that great. Yeah, the whale red mage. Yeah, red mages are cool, okay? So, you should hit him, by the way. There was this tweet popping around, which is nothing really new, because we're at something similar already. But I think it's kind of hilarious still. We don't need to go into the article itself. HP says it has become harder for younger people to engage with the Final Fantasy series because the release intervals for new titles have gotten longer. I'm 53 now and I've been playing since Final Fantasy 1 in real time. But for younger generations, people who grew up naturally accustomed to action-based combat and online competitive play, the recent entries in the series may have been hard to engage with. But you're making a mistake. You're trying to appeal to people that are not your fan base, while ostracizing your core fan base. That's why Final Fantasy is actually struggling. Spoiler alert. Part of that is simply because, I'm sorry to say, the release intervals for new titles have gotten longer. Some players haven't really had the chance to connect with the series the way other fans did. You're trying to make gigantic games, and you focus too much on shit like the graphics. I'm not saying they should be looking ugly or anything like that. I'm not saying all games were ugly or have poor graphics when you take into account their peers. What I'm saying is you're trying to make gigantic games, because if we go, I don't know if they're gonna mention how long to beat, but the 7 remakes have been absolutely massive. Final Fantasy Remake. 7 Remake. Yeah. The second part, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. Sure, main story. 48 hours. But the completion is 165. Because the world is just insanely huge. It's way too much. You need to make shorter games instead of massive odysseys. It's fine, it will be okay. All the Dragon Quest games are on the shorter side, shorter meaning like 40 hours, and they're still fantastic games, and there's nothing wrong with that. You also keep trying to throw things and see if anything sticks. They have been really inconsistent since Final Fantasy X, not including 10. You play 12? 12 is really weird. Don't know anything about 13. 14 is an MMO. 15 is Kingdom Hearts. And 16 is Baby's first Devil May Cry. There's no gameplay cohesion. That's a big problem. Yeah, we also have here this. Return to form, shorter games released more frequently, so you don't have to make out the cost of dev time with cup noodle commercials. Curado, Tanomi ga aru. Coming to 2.5D sprite-based Final Fantasy games with turn-based combat, war maps, and swooping on custom music instead of open world action and slap. I'm not against open world necessarily, but sometimes there's too much. In charge of the most successful Final Fantasy ever, removed RPG elements over 15 years. Nobody wants to play it anymore. He has to do his own Final Fantasy. Action game with no trace of Final Fantasy RPG elements. Staying again that saying turn-based is bad. Why do we care about what this guy says? I mean, that's a really good point. I know I keep mentioning this because it's really funny, right? But I do remember, this was like 2023, something like that. when 16 was about to release. And you had, I'm assuming it was this guy, right? That said, oh, but nobody wants to play turn-based RPGs anymore. People don't like turn-based games. The same day, by the way, the same year, Baldur's Gate 3 released and won Game of the Year. Isn't that funny? I would say that's actually pretty funny. Okay, this is break, hold up. Give me a second here. And at the end of the day, it's not that they just give the players what they want. And hey, they will flock to it. Imagine that. Whoa, that's crazy. They mentioned their strange stuff here. Be lonely. This was a bit overblown, to be fair. It was not quite that. But yeah, they have been getting into their strange mother audiences, I agree to that. I mean, it's Square Enix after all. Doesn't mean recent people are still engaged so heavily with Resident Evil. Been getting a new Resident Evil game like every 1 to 2 years for a while now. Whoops, half of them are remakes. Yeah, I don't know, but Final Fantasy remakes. They do have ports, and the ports are actually good. I'm not complaining about those. But there's still a caveat there. It's not literally the same. Also, if you're gonna release ports or pixel remasters, don't cut out content, please. Final Fantasy games aren't Final Fantasy anymore. The last truly great number entry was 12, and that one wasn't finished. I didn't like 12. I couldn't finish that. Couldn't be asked. Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 all came out within 5 years. Devs and gamers could embrace the use of AI. It's the only way games will be able to come out sooner. You're making shit up with this, pal. I don't think that makes any sense. That's not why. Yeah, that's probably not why, right? And I need to mention once again, especially because this is Final Fantasy. What about the spin-offs? Are you forgetting the spin-offs? You had really crazy spin-offs, but nowadays, every single spin-off has to be some sort of mobile gacha slop, and I'm sick of this. The city games were fun until they became gacha games. For gacha games, they were not bad, but you cannot compare those to the PSP games. What about Final Fantasy Tactics? They ended up going through the gacha slop route too, which is a massive mistake. Especially with major games like movies, was always going to backfire long term. I don't turn it wrong. The amount of them suck. When the heal after 10-2, I never played. I need to play at some point. Final Fantasy 13.1 gets a pass. Glazing 13. Are you mad? This is why Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest have no younger fans. You can build a connection with a series that hasn't had a new entry since before you were born. I don't think this was entirely wrong. To be fair, some of the games could be easily ported to the likes of PC. What are they gonna mention here? I'll go back and play the other games! Yeah, it's not a deep too, but it would be easier to officially support those games if there were actually viable, right? Not saying that there are no other means of acquiring such games, but I understand the issues some people may have, not saying otherwise, of course. From Zemi Webs, I think I read this and I think I agreed a lot with this. I'm in opposition to Yapping, but it's Twitter, so here's my suggestion. Don't reinvent the wheel of our game. Final Fantasy nailed its combat with Tang. Instead of set the foundation, innovate around that. Tang, I don't know if I agree. I don't think Tang was bad. I would say Tang was probably still decent. Decent, even good. Probably the last Final Fantasy I would enjoy from the main numbers. However, I think that customization was insanely great in 6. Thing that blown me away. Customization in 10 was not bad either, but if you played with the normal grids, it was a little bit formulaic. So maybe you should play with the international version, I think it's called, which is more freeform. But you can break the game a little bit with the original grids anyway. It's okay, it's fine. I do think 10 was a little bit too linear for my liking. I think that's reasonable. This original personal is obviously in the Species 33, all use that model. I mean, yeah, to some extent, I think it makes sense. Then making 80-hour game that's sure to finish, especially if you had to explore kilometers up again of nothing of open world. Make a 40-hour game that people can wait to replay. Yes, there's some games that I do enjoy, and then you look at that and I'm like, oh, but do I really wish to invest 100 hours playing this game again? Maybe I could play other 2 new games in that time. That's why I don't think I'm gonna replay 11, despite me actually liking it a lot. 131 hours. That's why. No one wants to recommend a game that doesn't spend the player's time, even if the game is good. There was... which one was it? There were some massive games on the Switch. Was it the Fire Emblem games? Not Engage, but the 3 houses? I have 3 houses. That was like 200 hours. Look, I like long games, but you had to admit that 200 hours is way too much. It's about the amount of time that I spent getting all of the achievements and back on the story. I didn't get all of them, but that was me playing through the game several times and doing insane grinding. I almost ended up becoming completely mad doing that. And that wasn't me. The game is not that long, thankfully. Target the OG Final Fantasy fans. They're in their 30s and 40s. That's the maturity level this story should aim for. Do not try to follow what you tried to do with 12. It was some sort of politics and floppa, and it didn't really work. Because I couldn't care about the system, I couldn't care about the characters, and I couldn't care about the story. Holy shit! It seemed extremely boring to me. Maybe that was just me. Maybe that was just me. They have the money to buy these games, but they also have limited time. They aren't going to waste it on Disney boy buying cringe. Ooh, shots fired. You don't need to cater to new Final Fantasy fans. All you have to do is call the game Final Fantasy. If you do that, they will buy it. Well, literally that's the case. Ooh, what do you mean that's not Final Fantasy? It's literally in the name. Is it? Is it really? Final Fantasy is to be games for young people who wanted to grow up. I feel like games made for adults who want to be kids. We grew up, but the games didn't. Maybe it's time the games grew up too. I mean, I wouldn't say... I'm thinking of the old ones, right? Yeah, probably. I don't know about the newer games. Maybe this guy's right with that. Play the old games, makes sense, we just saw that. Thinking about this a lot as I played through the entire series. Many of the 8 and 16-bit games were only a year apart. Memory prices are nightmarish. Nvidia has abandoned their core customer for a quick buck. Return to lower fidelity graphics, release more games, take more swings. You stop loading your games with fewer content that they won't take forever to release. I can't believe this company is still alive after the fire Sakaguchi. To be fair, I do agree with that. It is insane. Not having Sakaguchi anymore has been probably the worst decision in Square Enix. No wonder. Squaresoft was better and Enix was better. I would say Enix is not as bad as... Dragon Quest is not as bad nowadays in Square Enix as Final Fantasy compared to the previous companies before the merging, but it's still pretty fucking bad. He made Square so successful, they're still farming his cloud even though he's been gone longer than he was there. It's been more than 20 years! It is insane. Still haven't heard a single satisfactory explanation for why every single video game takes 8 years to make now. Do those skim ports really take that long to model? They're not that necessary. You could just go back to more anime style, right? Like, Tales of, for example. You could just play Berseria, which is the... not the last game released, but the second to last game released in 2017, despite having a remake already. And don't ask me why, because I have no clue. But you look at the game, you're like, it looks fine, it looks okay. It's a perfectly normal looking anime style game. You could just do that with Final Fantasy. And you would probably cut the cost by a huge margin. Probably why we need more spin-off games. Stranger of Paradise, Good Score, no mobile slapper, etc. started to help people over between major releases. Wasn't the Stranger... No, it was the new Crisis Core. They should be their own thing too. Because if they tie into more Final Fantasy VII, people are gonna be like, okay, now I need to play Final Fantasy VII, Original, the different parts of the remake, The Age of Cerberus, Watch Out on Children, maybe play OG Crisis Core. It becomes a massive chore, because you're gonna be missing a lot of context. So maybe you shouldn't do that, but you can just release normal games that are just spin-offs. Final Fantasy Explorers had nothing to do with Final Fantasy really, gameplay-wise, but it was a really fun game. It more remains like what Capcom has been doing for years. But the gaming does take a long time though. And maybe it shouldn't. No game shouldn't take more than 5 years to make. Don't think that's wrong. Yes, 100% right. I was growing up. Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9 and Tactics all released on PS1. And 10 and 12 were on PS2. 13 was on PS3. 15 was on PS4. 16 was on PS5. Maybe that's the way it feels like consoles don't have games anymore. Because they really don't have games anymore. Because they don't release enough games to actually buy the systems. The way things are now, 16 won't release until the PS6. Yeah, that's for sure. So that's pretty funny. That is pretty funny. I don't think it's that difficult to release successful games. I'm not saying they are the best games ever and they are insanely successful and they're the best games forever and ever. But it cannot be that difficult to release something that people will want to buy. If you're a huge gaming company like Square Enix, it makes no sense to me. You could even take ideas from other IPs that you own already. For example, I guess it kinda exists already, that you could make a different permutation of that, right? Dragon Quest Monsters, I think it's such a cool idea. You could make Final Fantasy monsters. That could be really cool. World of Final Fantasy, I think it's similar. I've never played it though. So hey, a Monster Collector Final Fantasy game? That could work. That could actually work. And you could do the opposite. Why not? The cat exists already as Mobile Slapper. Dragon Quest Tactics. Whoa, that could be cool. That could be cool. And you can just borrow similar mechanics from the other IP, right? I mean, the Tactics I think is pretty obvious. Some stuff might be difficult to translate, like some spells are group of enemies, or single target group of enemies, or just all the enemies. That might be difficult to implement, sure, but there's something there. That's an idea. That's a super interesting idea. You have a lot of spells. You have a lot of even physical abilities. It couldn't be that bad, right? It's not just the risking of Final Fantasy Tactics, but the idea would be to start from that and work into something a little bit more unique. You already have a class system. You can just use that, and that's okay. It's gonna work similarly to that of Final Fantasy Tactics anyway. It can just work. I would play the game if it was good. Is it gonna be good? Well, I don't know. That's one of the main issues nowadays, isn't it? Because it's Square Enix. They're not really that trustworthy anymore with anything, really. Pretty run for them, what can you say? Speaking of rubber staffing games, we also have this, which appears to be a big deal. Yeah, let me close this. Steam users are urged to check devices through FBI malware warning. What? That doesn't sound good. Steam users are urged to check devices through malware attack warning by the FBI. According to post with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, several Steam games contain malicious software that could have impacted games. Not just games, that's the scary part. The expected activities range from May 2024 through January 2026. Titles named so far include Blockblasters, Chemia, Dashverse, Dash FPS, Lampy, Lunara, Pirate Fi, and Tokenova, all tied to cases being handled by the FBI's Seattle division. If you or someone you know install one of these games, you're being asked to fill out a victim information form or email the bureau directly. Flipping Computer reports that the agency is trying to identify people who may have suffered account takeovers, stolen funds, or other damage after launching the games. It's kind of insane that that can happen on Steam. The FBI is legally mandated to identify victims of federal crimes it investigates. Victims may be eligible for certain services, restitution, and rights under federal and/or state law. All identities of victims will be kept confidential. The FBI told Blipping Computer. What happens if you're not from the USA? They just said, yeah, federal or state law. What happens if you're from Europe or Australia? That could become a huge legal issue. Not for the FBI, but for the makers of those bad games. Am I? No, okay. It just stopped there for a second. My bad. Just looking at the music for a second there. On the surface, these games looked ordinary. However, they include the shady software that slipped into Steam, which created the scam. Polygon reported that several of the titles were linked to suspect crypto scams. Will TechCrunch noted that FBI believes the same hacker may be behind multiple malware-laced games published on the platform. Among the titles, Blockblasters, a free-to-play 2D platformer that was available from July to September 2024, was one of the most notable cases. Initially uploaded to Steam as a clean program, crypto-trader malware was later added to the game. Reports saying when streamer lost more than 32,000 USD after downloading it. I remember doing that. Wasn't that also a cancer patient? That was truly disgusting. The same report said blockchain investigators estimated losses across hundreds of Steam accounts, which shows this was not some tiny nuisance buried in a corner of the platform. Generally, Valve acts rapidly to terminate offending games after discovering their true nature. However, some games, to get past them, unfortunately, I think they are not perfect, they do try. For example, Blockbuster reached a peak of 7 concurrent users according to Steam TV. Swing to PC Mag, Valve said, we previously sent email notifications to players who launched certain games on Steam, but we discovered that builds of those games likely contained malware. We removed those builds from Steam, investigated the incidents, and cooperated with law enforcement. Yesterday, we forwarded the affected customers a message from the Federal Bureau of Investigation regarding the investigation. Early access, playtest, and the trap. Isn't Shadow in trouble? That's rough. Don't think so, right? It's just an example of an early access game, I presume. How can you tell what's a trap and what's real? It's important to note Steam's features. For instance, Steam Early Access is a real feature, and Valve boasts that it allows developers to sell a game when it's unfinished as long as it's playable. That's a great way to promote the game while testing it, and gives the audience a chance to point out bugs and suggest ways to make the game smoother. Along with that, Steam Playtest is also legitimate, with Valve describing it as a separate, low-risk way for developers to let players test the game before the full release. But with this feature, some scammers have hidden behind the language that players are used to. Using words like playtest, beta, or early access makes the game seem promising, but makes it easy for gamers to download the fake or compromised game. It's important to do your research before downloading a game. Yeah, you need the proper blocks of text here. That's what they mean, I to think. What's next? If you or someone you know downloaded one of these games, please fill out the short form with relevant information. The FBI is collecting victim reports, technical details, screenshots, and any communication users had with people who promoted the games. The brute form asks about Steam IDs, account compromise, crypto wallet activity, suspicious contacts on platforms like Discord or Telegram. Never been in allegations with those. And whether money was lost. InfoSecurity magazine reported that the campaign appears tied to efforts to trace victims and map out the malware operation more completely. Completely understandable. Malicious file. How Steam gamers protect themselves? Beware of random messages pushing you to download the game. You can play tests to remove money around. That's pretty obvious to me. The FBI says unknown contacts should not be trusted with financial or personal information. It warns people to treat online investment advice with extreme caution. Reasonable? If nothing feels out after installing a game, run a security scan, check what software was recently added, change important passwords from a clean device, and review accounts tied to your browser or crypto wallet. If you have any, of course. Steam previously warned affected users in one case to scan their system and consider reinstalling the operating system, which tells you how serious these infections can be. Wow, that's crazy damage. Also, a simple rule that still holds up, even a world full of slick store pages and polished trailers. Slow down before you click. Research your game before downloading. For all the gamers, especially ones who still think of Steam as the safe shelf of a TV store, this store is a rough reminder that familiar brands don't always mean familiar risks. You'll download one of the named games between May 2024 and January 2026. The smartest move now is to report it and log down your accounts. And never use Steam, thank God for that. I don't think it's Steam's fault. That can happen literally everywhere after all. But I do think that it is unexpected to see something like this from Steam, that's for sure. Not justifying anything that's been happening for this past couple of years with those games. It is indeed a rough situation. I do believe that this may be somewhat of a potential problem too if you're a content creator. If I'm not saying this has happened, but I do think this is a potential issue. Right, when a company you know comes knocking at your email account and tells you, hey, why don't we have some sort of sponsorship? And they show you the game, and you play the game, and you show it to hundreds, maybe thousands of people, you get paid, and the game is actually a malware mine. Don't think that would happen really, because that opens you for more liability, not as a streamer, but as the scammer. Then again, content creators don't seem to be the smartest tools in the Crayon box, sadly. I mean, after all, haven't we seen many scams being promoted by YouTubers? Like, what was the name? Don't remember the proper name. But there's a French company that said, yeah, we will buy a square inch of land in Scotland so that you actually get a title, a sir or lady or something like that. Obvious scam. The chemical knives, way too expensive for what they are, so on and so forth, because it keeps happening. There was also this, what was the name of the service? The Honey app? That was also a big deal before too. Yes, my code, but the Honey app uses their codes, so they get the money. Ooh, that's nasty. That's pretty nasty. But yeah, if you're gonna do something, especially officially, in any kind of way with companies you don't know, or products you don't know, you need to research. Something that's completely been lost to the ages, I'm afraid. I need to blow my nose. It's getting really stuffy. Give me a second here. Better now. That's way better. What do we have here? Oh boy. This thing. This next story here has been a strange discussion that's been taking Twitter for a ride this past week. Apparently this happens to be a hot take nowadays. In my opinion, if you have the means to experience a video game yourself, then you should simply not be a fan of it. There are more hobbies out there. Which seems to be understandable. You might be thinking, oh, what kind of elitist narrative is this? Well, we're not talking about, like other times, people that have trouble finishing games. That would be an understandable thing to happen. We're not talking about people that refuse to engage with intended mechanics in the games, which sounds a little bit suspicious, but it's not something that doesn't exist. It's something we've seen far too many times in recent times too. We're talking about people that refuse to actually play the video games, yet they still count themselves fans. It is my understanding this comes from Resident Evil quote-unquote fans saying that they're huge fans of Resident Evil, but they only watch Let's Plays / streams. And that doesn't make any sense to me. If you're a fan of a video game, shouldn't you want to play the video game? I think that makes total sense. I understand that maybe some of the newer games you cannot play them because they might require a device that's too powerful and you don't own, or maybe these new games are maybe a little bit too expensive. Sure, I can be understanding of such situations. But just the outright refusal to play the games is insane to me. It's a video game. The objective of a video game is to play it. And sure, I actually enjoy, speaking of Resident Evil, watching people play Resident Evil. Not because I'm a fan. My experience with Resident Evil amounts to like 10 minutes playing 4, like 15 years ago. But because I like those content creators. I would never call myself a Resident Evil fan, because I am clearly not a fan. I even think those games are not for me. But having those videos on the side while do some other thing can be an entertaining experience. There's nothing wrong with that. What did they mention here? Hold up. The replies here are expanding a little bit more the idea. Instead of the simple train of thought, we've tried to normalize that it's okay to not interact with the medium, still be a fan of the thing. Why? It doesn't make any sense. I have to say, it's funny, people are trying to call me amateurs while they believe video games are art, and such should be as accessible as possible. Game playthroughs aren't part of this. Oh, and piracy is a good thing. This guy said it, not me. Do not quote me on that. The most insane thing here is not only that this is considered to be some sort of hot take, is that people, if you go to the quotes, will say stuff like, "This sounds so privileged." I mean, yeah, if you want to partake in a product, you need to be able to buy the product. Video games are still products, okay? There's nothing wrong with that, but these people will use poor people, disabled people, to defend sheer insanity. 87,000 people, are we sure? On Twitter, agree with this insane sentiment. What are you talking about, pal? Privileged. Video games are one of the most, if not the most accessible hobby there is out there that requires a purchase. But you need to buy a device. But you need to buy the video games. You're saying stuff on Twitter. You have a device. It's either a computer or a phone. Did you know you can play a lot of things on those? Yeah. It's insane. You can just emulate a lot of video games. My old computer, at this point, it has to be like 15 years old, could run with no trouble PS2 and Wii games. Resident Evil came out on the PS1. You could play easily through at least Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, and 4 with such an old computer. Phones nowadays can also emulate an insane amount of video games. My first smartphone, Samsung Galaxy Ace. I was playing Game Boy Advance on that thing so many years ago. Video games nowadays can easily emulate the PSP. Okay? It's not that difficult. It's not that difficult. The poor people. At some point you have to reconcile that you are a beggar. If you're a beggar, you cannot be a chooser, I'm sorry. And what's even more pernicious here is the fact that they will use disabled people as a shield when they're just trying to protect their sheer sloth here. I'm kind of becoming better Gears here. What such a slothful way of living. They are video games. I shouldn't be here begging you to play the video games that you like. If it's a video game and you like it, normally the natural train of thought would be, I like this video game, therefore I want to play it. You're making all of the excuses in the world just to not play the games that you're a fan of. In theory, it is insane. 87,000 likes on this tweet saying, so privileged. Of course we see insane narrative here. That's an idiot. If you like something but you can't enjoy it due to money or other means, you didn't deserve to like it in the first place, clearly. Do you hear yourself? You cannot be a fan if you don't interact meaningfully with the thing. Oh boy, I do like racing. It's so privileged that I cannot buy a 50,000 race car. Well, yeah. What about that? There's a barrier of entry if you wanna be a racer. You can still watch it, but you're clearly not a racer. You're something else. And this is the same difference. These people do not qualify as gamers, I'm sorry. But they do wear that as a skin suit. People thought, or I do think that people may believe I'm too harsh when call these individuals, these insane creatures on the internet, illegal immigrants instead of tourists. They are worse than that. They're nothing more than parasites. What you also like? People should play the games they're interested in. Especially in emulation, it's very accessible nowadays. You hate pores! You hate pores. Clearly you have a device. You can just emulate the stuff. You can just wait for Steam sales and buy games for what? $3? Then you have $5? And I cannot believe I'm gonna say this, but I'm gonna say it because beggars cannot be choosers. You could even have an Epic Games account. They give free games all the time. Not that people play them still because people hate Epic with a burning passion. But if you need somebody to give you free games, you can just sell your soul to China. It's just that easy. Interact with the hotline my MLRper and you'll see when this take is right. And we have some takes here that I do think are really accurate and kinda shapes gaming in the past 10 to 15 years. Starting to come to the conclusion that like 90% of vitriolic discourse in the games industry the last 10 years and defense of bad developers / bad games has been largely driven by people who don't even play video games. 10 to 15 years, how curious. Literally the same as the rise of social media. For these people, video games, or I suppose video game fandoms, happen to be just some sort of social gathering. Now that's my hobby, it's not for you to LARP about or try to make friends. I mean, you can still make friends if you're a gamer, right? Despite the strange allegations. But if they're just making excuses to not play the games they in theory enjoy, they're clearly not fans. Having to suffer and play games with the lowest possible specs so they can rag on your potato. Having to trudge through several iterations of games completely in Japanese way before I could read anything of the language, because those games were never getting translated. That's what happened back in my day when we wanted to play the games that we were fans of. Nowadays it's just stream slapper and video game essays, or even worse, TikTok shorts. Truly wretched. Also this guy being kind of a funny goof. So, if I play a game I don't like, am I still a fan? Because I played it? What are the rules here? How does this work? I'm too old and set in my ways for this shit, man. Of course, here's the flowchart to help you understand better. Do you play the game? No. You're not a fan. Do you play the game? Yes. Do you like it? No. Clearly, you're not a fan. Do you like it? Yes. You are a fan. It's simplified for sure. I think like some sort of nuance about perhaps some sort of passion or being interested in playing more games or knowing more about it. But maybe that's just me. And there's also this thread by Christina Tasty, which she makes a lot of sense here, and I don't like it. I was beating myself a little bit over the head because I didn't realize this before. But in my defense, I will say that I found this narrative about fans of Let's Plays while I just woke up, so that's gonna be my excuse. I hope you don't mind it. Backlash makes sense when you realize many people want to use their fan status to give their arguments, or wait when they inevitably demand to change / censor games they've never played. Ergo, when they pretend to care about poor people to emotionally manipulate you. Also, I don't think she's gonna mention it here, but I do think it's absolutely nasty. Not to just use poor people, because they don't really have to do anything with this conversation, but to use disabled people. They're using disabled people as a shield and as a crutch to push developers to create more strange accessibility options. And these accessibility options, as we've seen, mean the plane just plays itself. Because these people don't play games. Therefore, I guess disabled people cannot engage meaningfully with the games either. I think that's BS. I do think that disabled people might need special controllers or special ways of interacting with the game, but they will still interact with the game, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just trying to skip the game in general because I'm a disability. Well, if you're too disabled to play video games, you're gonna be playing video games. That's the end of it. And using that as an excuse to make games worse, it affects everybody in the hobby. Well, not them, because they didn't even actually play the games. Then you encounter these new players going into Crimson Desert. Oh, the game is so difficult. All the puzzles, they're impossible. Why? Because you don't have an NPC telling you the solution in 2.5 seconds? This is not a Veilguard, okay? You can tell, because they're mad over anyone suggesting alternatives like emulation / sailing the 7 seas. Because if they suggest ways to play games cheaply or free, they can use poor people as a weapon to shame you. You don't believe games are art, they believe games are content. There's a lot to unpack here just in this tweet. First, the emulation technique. Especially when we talk about Resident Evil. I already mentioned 1, 2, and 3 in the PS1. Did you know there's a version of Resident Evil 1 for the DS? Did you know you have Resident Evil Gaiden on the Game Boy Color? You can just play Game Boy Color games on literally anything. I could use a shoe for that, I bet. And my shoes are normal, not even electronic. That's insane to me. That's what happened back in the day, right? Oh, look. See, these people didn't buy the NES or the SNES. So maybe we can port some of these games to the portable consoles. That's how we got Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 on the Game Boy Color. Nothing wrong with that. I actually played Dragon Quest 1 and 2 on the Game Boy Color. Not in my normal Game Boy, but my special Game Boy. And there was nothing wrong with that. It's pretty much the same game anyway. That's why we got Final Fantasy 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 on the GBA, for example. Most games, most well-known games, are in many different platforms, so it's even easier to pick them up and play them. It's insanity to me. And once again, if I could emulate already PS2 and Wii games with a 15-year-old computer, there are no excuses nowadays. You don't need an extremely expensive device. Even second-hand consoles like the PS4 have to be really cheap nowadays. And the second point, they believe games are content. I've seen some creatures on the internet. Not a lot, I will admit to that, but I've seen some that treat every single piece of media, like for example movies, as quote-unquote content. No. Content is what I make here on YouTube, on Twitch, on Kick. Is it really valuable? Probably not. But it's not a movie, it's not a video game, it's something different. There are different pieces of media, not everything is content. The content brain is... it's really bad, this is. I'd argue that if you have the means in today's day and age have never been more achievable. I'd argue that if you don't have the means in today's day and age have never been more achievable. Because again, the government's claiming to be a FNAF fan despite never playing the games, and it's like, you're gonna play it on the thing you're posting with. Also, isn't Five Nights at Freddy's like less than $5 on Steam? Not really heavily interested in that game, but I do think that is correct. If you want to be a fan, there will always be at least one guy who will find a way to make whatever you want to be a fan of work on the most potato of computers. They need to strike while the iron is out and wait their patience for a Steam sale or Stone Zinni. I don't know what Zinni is. It's not a joke, I actually don't know. You also even have some crazy lads out there making remakes like Bloodborne PS1? Never played it, but it looks pretty interesting. Not too big in Souls-likes, I'm sorry. Don't think they're for me. But this is the point we're at. We're begging these creatures to actually partake in their hobbies. This is not just skinwalking, this is not illegal immigration, this is just pure sloth. And we're supposed to care what these people say? No! They are the lowest of the low. Now with this, we can finally understand, though, if you've seen some of these quote-unquote Persona fans, you know they've never played the games. You finally see these people that want to drive the conversations about the hobbies didn't understand anything of the hobbies. They have never played these games, and they will never play these games. That's the funniest part of all. They will never play because they keep making excuses. I'm sick of these individuals. And I do hope that companies stop catering to them. Just make the good game once again, and everybody can be happy. And if these people cannot be happy, good. And some more replies here. It's very transparent. It's also never going to work because being a fan was never binary. I understand to establish hierarchies based on who was the biggest fan of something, and those whose opinion mattered most. I mean, sure, if you play 3 Final Fantasy games, you're gonna be more of a fan than somebody that played 1, but less of fun than somebody that played 8 different games. I think it makes sense. Back when a fan was watching anime in 240p, broken up in parts on YouTube, compared to now where someone just gives up if they can't find it in Crunchyroll. I think repeating YouTuber opinions and reposting Reddit memes makes them a fan. They do love their TikTok memes. Truly wretched. Truly disgusting. I don't like this one. Just to hate the rich, but do you have the courage to hate the poor? This? Yes, it's really easy. The poor excuse is so annoying. You have internet, a phone, or a computer that isn't 15 years old. You're not poor enough to buy or save up for a game. The fact that you think you need to buy every game shows you just want to define a status, not enjoy a game. And as I mentioned, 15-year-old computers can run some of these games too. Have Kurishima here. It is truly insane. It is truly insane. Imagine not interacting with something that you like. It's just complete lunacy. Many times I feel like I'm going insane when you see shit like this. When we see this insane individual getting 87,000 likes. That's at least 87,000 people that agree with this. I think I'm going insane, but I know I'm not. Because what I say stands up to scrutiny, but these people do not. truly strange. Speaking of memes and strange people from the internet, what about 4chan? 4chan trolls UK government with a hamster after issuing a signed massive $700,000 fine. 4chan responded to a £420,000. I thought it was 420, not 5,020. I don't know what I said anymore. That's about the 700,000 USD fine from the UK regulator Ofcom with an edge-edited photograph of a hamster. Oh wow, hamsters so edgy. Back in the day, with that being Pep telling them to fuck off. Over the last year, several governments across the globe have looked to crack down on what content can be accessed by children under the age of 18. Australia has banned social media usage from all under 16s, urging them to go outside instead. Why? To get stabbed? You fucking lunatic? While the United Kingdom has implemented age verification checks under the Online Safety Act, while websites that house content are required to verify users' age with the face scan, why the checks? Not all of them do, and even so, it can be bypassed. Everything can be bypassed. It's the internet, that's the fun part. It has led to legal challenges, and fines being handed out by the government over the OSA. 4chan has been hit with a £520,000 fine of its own from Ofcom, the UK's online safety regulator, for failing to comply with various aspects of the OSA. It's kind of funny because, of course, 4chan is an American site, so I don't know to what extent they can actually do something like that. Yeah, that looks like a British guy. 4chan responds to Ofcom's latest fine. In response to the massive fine, 4chan's lawyer, Preston Darring, stated the platform doesn't intend to pay anything to the UK's online safety regulator, and they even marked the demand. Ofcom, thanks. As being explained to your agency ad nauseam, the UK lost the American Revolutionary War. We are not in the mood to discuss the matter further. I have not been in the mood for 250 years. I've been sending an email to Ofcom, which she posted to X. Holy shit! I do appreciate this gusto. As that she thought of an agent hamster named Nigel J. Whiskerford, I suggested an even larger rodent would be using any further responses. Oh, look at me, we're so edgy. She had the caption something like, suck my nuts. That'd be funny. In the only country in which 4chan operates, the US, it is breaking no law, and indeed its conduct is expressly protected by the First Amendment, Burr continued. Back in August, 4chan and Q4 filed a lawsuit in the US federal court challenging the UK's OSA, and called Ofcom an industry-funded global censorship bureau, which is fine enough and not wrong. Look, if you wanna be annoying about the internet, about censorship, about all of this bullshit, you have to realize you can only do that if you actually control the internet, or those websites actually operate natively on your country. None of them are true. Therefore, I'm sorry, but you're mistaken. And there's nothing you can do. The best thing you can do is just block the site. Surely that will not backfire. It's gonna be worse than China's firewall, I bet. Build a wall! Britbomb people are hilarious. We also have here an article by Hammer. I haven't read this, but I do think it encapsulates the age verification rabbit hole, as this is the title. So it might be an interesting read. We can go back to the UK after that, don't mind me. We can still laugh at them. Like I said in a previous post on the topic of ID/age verification, I started digging into the topic quite a bit. Especially to that Metal Loving Spouse news dropped. We're right about that, so we know. What I have, more of others found, is something that is so stupid, but also makes a whole lot of sense. In fact, AMO, my opinion, to the perfect piece of the puzzle. I will lay out my digging through a series of events. First, advertisers, that is corporations with products or services to sell, contract with big social media platforms, paying boatloads of money for ad space. Oh, it's the ad space rabbit hole. I love it. And the fact that even if 10% of the tens of millions of users buy into their ads, it's worth the investment. Second, the aspect of botting has led to ads being viewed, I assume, by more bots than they do humans. No matter how many bots watch your ads, They don't need your products or services, so they will never give advertisers money and businesses. Third, this essentially means that advertisers are probably throwing money into the drain, paying the price with practically no ROI. That's it means. Return on investment. That makes sense. Many reports indicate that this bottom problem resulted in multi-billion-dollar wastage on ad spending. So instead of having ads being more reasonable, they're gonna make everybody just identify themselves to sell them ads. I mean, we read that tweet last week, so it's not that surprising, but I still quite dislike it. They mention here 22% of global online ad spending, about 84 billion in 2023, was wasted on fake or non-human traffic. You can all imagine how much that increased in the past 3 years, though. Because digital ad spending to digital ad spending lost the fraud. Yeah, about double. Funny. Fourth, advertisers have started grilling social media companies, especially Meta, which was one of the biggest sources of the issue. This resulted in many advertisers basically threatening to pull out money until the bottom situation is controlled. New tricks fraudsters are using in 2025. So the most concerning new techniques include AI-generated traffic that behaves like real users across websites and apps, deepfake video ads featuring realistic but fake people and voices, Reliance Moral SDK spoofing the fake installs, links, and in-app activity, sophisticated CTV fraud involving spoofed devices, fake apps, and inflated impressions. But fifth, the situation became even worse around 2023 to 2025, with the AI bros and companies are pushing AI development. The past anti-bot systems and measures lose effectiveness as AI makes bots more sophisticated. Sixth, in late 2025 to early 2026, you can see the snap, the unique solution, age/ID verification being pushed or implemented across multiple countries as around the same timing, within months. There's $2 billion lobby machine exposed. They're pushing data LEDs into your phone's OS and Google. Yeah, I'm assuming this is pretty much the same we read the last week. Big Tech Giants battle over competing age verification bills. May 9th, 2025. Nothing that new, apparently. Still disgusting. 7th. Then now the news about Sockmail? Social media and big tech garbs lobbying politicians and governments for mass ID/age verification on an OS/App Store level. 8th. Why is there quote-unquote fix? If you pick your poison to age verify, a selfie, your major ID, or pin your credit card, your age will be verified. It also comes with the useful byproduct for confirming you're human, unless you're normal readers, I guess. Give us your face or lose your account. Age verification is here, and that's where they're worried. Spread advice to YouTube. Run from on-demand biometric proof of age. As was warned that you could lose access and your privacy if the algorithms get it wrong. So as a takeaway, what does this mean? Well, to me at least, this will neatly explains when both governments and large corporations have collaborated and colluded to push for ID verification at an alarming pace globally. In the end, it really was about money. It always is. This is the California law. We read this article. It also means, quite simply in my opinion, these corporations and governments never really cared about the children. Think of the children! In my opinion, has always been, and will continue to be, the convenient excuse for these corporations and politicians to implement this privacy-invasive system. Not wrong. France bans access to popular hentai outlet, and hentai claims site contains images of cheese pizza. Of course that is incorrect, because it's fiction, so it's not real. And proposes initiative to ban only showing underage drawings and cartoons. French President Macron defends painting depicting child rape. France, am I right, fellas? Young Indian workers suspended for a leaking report on child abuse by French troops. Charity sex scandal. Union staff responsible for 60,000 rapes in a decade. Exclusive! WSF Children's Right Campaigner who led the UK's anti-smacking campaign is jailed for rape of boy 13 in a charity sex scandal. If they truly cared about the kids and their well-being, they would deport the Pakistani rape gangs. But they don't. Why do this happen? Because those gangs bought for them. I mean, you wouldn't want to screw your electorate, would you? Well, maybe you should. But if I said something else that should happen, I get banned and thrown in jail. Read between the lines. Because if only proven humans can use social media or other similar sites or services, our tasks will be modified and continue to throw money at these big tech corporations for continuing the space. This also means that the so-called prawns and people like the Riceman, Cross Defense, or Identity Verification. Oh, gender roles, what a fucking cock. Are they very stupid or complex than this? And you had to put your ID to getting anything anyway? It's been that way for decades. I fucking warn you, with digital ID. Take me out so I can use it on my watch, MacBook, iPhone, and Apple TV with one simple ID. Stupid. It comes, AIH verification hits tomorrow. FS doing everyone complaining, putting their ID to get a blue check on X. I don't. I don't have a blue check, I don't care. Either way, the only winners are the advertisers, the big tech corpos, and the politicians. We all, however, lose. Happens a lot. And that also happens because ads are just thrown to the wind. If it doesn't work, just keep throwing ads until it works, instead of having reasonable ads and properly targeted ads. This is a disaster of their own making, but we get to pay the consequences for that. Isn't that funny? If it was funny, I would be laughing. And the replay say here, session makes a lot of sense, without doubt that there are even more hidden factors and goals, but this sure is a good one. Yeah, I mean, we also have the likes of Meta wanted to sell their product too. This is gonna be trend once. I personally believe that the government, this angle is also just a convenient to the government, this angle is just a convenient contest for monitoring the public. Considering how invested digital ID is going to be implemented, but at least we see why few companies are fighting it. Yeah, we're also seeing the EU want to push for digital ID and digital currency, so just the social how do you call this again? I was about to say social media, but that's wrong. Social credit scores. Never had to be corp enough. A little more deeper than advertisers losing money, but it's also important, I do believe. Yeah, I would say this is probably highly accurate from what we're seeing. It's just another way of trying to extract more money, and hey, if they had to screw the small guy, sure, why not? And we're screwing the small guy, huh? What about the kids? They don't care about those, clearly. We also have here, going back to the UK, being a fucking cesspool of a country. Insect Police process use of live facial recognition cameras to racial bias concerns. What did they mean by this? The technology is seen by the government as a way of using AI to get dangerous individuals off the streets. But their concerns over privacy and data retention. Cry me a fucking table. Cry me a fucking table, Linda. What about identity verification, huh? It's literally the same. This Police as far as the use of live facial recognition cameras. After a study found they identify more black people than other ethnic groups. How curious. How curious. We cannot tell you the truth. You cannot see the data. That will make you racist. Well, you can call me racist, but you cannot call me wrong. The cameras are mounted on vans and designed to identify people on watch lists if they pass by. 13 forces were using it by the end of last year, and the Home Secretary said in January the number of LFRs vans would increase from 10 to 50. However, Essex Poly said they had paused use of LFR after a potential bias in the positive identification rate, although it now believes the issue has been corrected by updating the algorithm. Sure. 1,500 people were recruited by University of Cambridge researchers to test LFR during one of the force's deployments. They finally correctly identified the 1,000 those on the watch list, and it was extremely rare for someone to be flagged after they were on the list. But the study found it was statistically significantly more likely to correctly identify black people than other ethnicities. It was also more likely to spot men than women. Maybe because it has more data on them. Funny how that works. The UK. Researchers said it raised questions about fairness and require continued monitoring. Not everything is equal. I'm sure to tell you this, UK. Six polyester told Sky News the study was one of two it commissioned, and the second suggested no bias, but then it had part of the plans to work with the algorithm software provider to update the system. It said further academic assessment had been done and they believed the system was ready to hit the streets again. We have revised our policies and procedures and are now confident that we can start deploying this important technology as part of policing operations to trace and arrest wanted criminals, said the statement. We'll continue to monitor all results to ensure there is no risk of bias against any one section of the community. Real risk of unfairness, hold up. Need a tape here. Beyond concerns about identifying some groups more than others, the study also examined how LFR had worked so far for Essex Police. It said about 1.3 million faces had been scanned from August 2024 to February 2025. That sounds really scary. With 48 arrests, about one for every 27,000 faces. There was only one mistaken intervention. Researchers said different LFR systems and conditions could produce different results. The more testing is needed to build a fuller understanding of the technology's performance. As the government looks to ramp up use of the technology, questions over privacy and the huge number of images taken remain a key concern. I'm sorry, it's too late. The UK has been a surveillance state for decades at this point. Why are you surprised? It's still late to fix it, I'm afraid. At least with this government. The study said that proportionality, transparency, and oversight were vital in deciding when to use LFR, and the Information Commission's office is also scrutinizing the technology. All persons should also be conducting routine testing for bias and discriminatory outcomes, whether arising from technology design, training data, or watchlist composition, said the ACO. Without this, there's a real risk of unfairness. The Home Office said the person's image is immediately and automatically deleted if it does not match the watch list, and all deployments are targeted, intelligence-led, time-bound, and geographically limited. Sure thing. It just got deleted, just like the T-app. There's not a single privacy or security concern here, I bet. This has never happened in the UK before. Whoops, don't look at that. Whoops, don't look at that. Whoops, don't look at that. It said more than... It's dang, putting A. It said more than 1,300 people suspected of serious crimes, including rape, domestic abuse, and GBH, had been arrested in London thanks to LFR between January 2024 and September 2025. How curious. That the racial bias. Well, it's not my fault if they happen to commit more crime, is it? Is it now? I don't think so. It's not my fault. It also has a really easy fix. The fix everything bottom, but you know, we cannot press that. It's too able. We cannot press that. It's not allowed. Well, I guess we're just screwed, aren't we? Speaking of getting screwed by the government, I never thought the day I would see an article like this, but oh boy. Conspiracy theorists, right once again. You love or hate to see it, I'm not quite sure. From the Daily Mail, saying accused of poisoning the sky with toxins as fast as power's secret weather control agenda. But I thought that was not real. I thought that was nothing more than a conspiracy theory. Well, joke's on you. It's always true. Where are the multi-dimensional goblins? I'm still waiting for those. Oh boy, oh boy. Once top secret CIA files have detailed America's plans to control the world by manipulating the weather. Control the world, by the way. The documents, declassified in 2003, discuss the controversial topic of weather modification, the tactic of launching rockets or using planes to dump chemicals into the atmosphere that alter the climate and local storm systems. And the researchers' documents from 1965 did not mention the specific chemicals used in the experiments. They did discuss the need for more funding of the weather modification projects that will soon be used as a weapon of war. In fact, the memos noted that federal funding for the secret program was said to be 4 times higher in 1967, the same year the US began spraying taxes over Vietnam to cause floods and landslides. Ha! Didn't know that had to do with the Nam War, that's crazy. Ambusting exclaimed, the CIA has been poisoning the sky and controlling the weather since 1965. I mean, it appears to be correct, to some extent. The 18-page report was recently shared by conspiracy theorists, years after it was quietly placed in the CIA's public archives, including a letter praising the classified operation from US President Lyndon B. Johnson. Johnson's endorsement of the CIA's weather modification project came just 3 years after he gave an ominous speech on the future of America and the work to create weather satellites with the power to strengthen storms. Hydra Storm! Isn't there a movie called Geostorm? Never seen it. Don't know if it has to do anything with this. Well, given the commencement address at Southwest Texas State University in May 1962, then Vice President Johnson said he who controls weather will control the world. This guy came into office after the assassination of Kennedy, by the way. Make of that what you will. Just 18 months after giving this speech, advocating for the US to control the weather, Johnson became the 36th president and will oversee the 2 infamous projects designed to manipulate the weather: Project Storm Fury and Project Popeye. Good chicken. It's not the best, I guess it's okay. Following the speech, the report shows real government programs were already underway by 1965, such as Project Storm Fury, which flew into hurricanes and seeded them with a freezing agent called silver iodide to try to weaken the storms by disrupting their inner structures. Then they also use silver nitrate to destroy clouds? I'm not quite sure. I think I heard of that? Don't quote me on that. Johnson's letter, which is among the 18-page CIA report from September of that year specifically, mentioned the previous work in manipulating a recent hurricane near Florida, literally Hurricane Betsy, which made landfall in Louisiana as a major Category 4 storm. By 1967, however, this work expanded to Project Popeye, which was used against enemy supply lines during the Vietnam War to artificially extend the country's monsoon season. Intelligence officials also noted that they had full support of Johnson, who was determined to beat the Soviet Union's efforts to control the weather as global tensions escalated. That's big Cold War nonsense, holy shit. The US government has maintained that weather modification has been used only to help weaken dangerous storms and induce rain in drought-stricken areas. That's a bunch of fucking bullshit. What about California? However, conspiracy theorists sharing the files have accused the CIA of using these projects to keep the world dependent on government by weaponizing storms, blocking sunlight, and posting food supplies to intentionally make people sick. These allegations focus on so-called chemtrails, the wet streaks seen coming from high-flying jets on clear days, which appear to spread out and dissipate very slowly. Sometimes they do strange shit, but I'm not a weatherman, so I don't know if it actually makes sense or not. I don't truly understand how they work, the ins and outs. Weather modification. Yeah, field support in the 60s. The job they did during the recent hurricane by Johnson, that makes sense. Ever since the start of the government's weather modification efforts, conspiracy believers have said the streaks are filled with the herd of dangerous chemicals being sprayed by military jets and commercial airliners over populated cities. I do remember, this was a long time ago, before it was boring a bit, that It was not huge planes or anything like that. They were pretty low-powered airplanes here, just not even the US. But you see an airplane flying around, and the next day or after a couple of days, you would see a huge invasion of how do you call this? Again, hold up. How do you call this in English? A fleas. Of course, fleas. Yeah, makes sense. I forgot the word. Which is really strange. So, kind of begs the question. Because they would be outside in the clothing you had trying. So that's strange. But it's even more strange. So I guess it's not really that uncommon, right? Long-lasting trails that turn blue skies into milky haze for hours? Not condensation. As poison falling on your family, your water, your lungs, some person on social media alleged without proof. Without proof, I believe this guy. When the US Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and environmental researcher Dane Wigginton can trace allegedly contain toxins and metals, including aluminium, barium, strontium, and even mercury. These materials are put in jet fuel. RFK claimed in April 2025, and going to do everything in my power to stop it. Find out who's doing it and hold them accountable. I don't think you actually need like mercury for jet fuel. But what do I know? The vast majority of scientists have long declared this theory is false. Again, the most condensation trails or contrails are the result of water vapor from aircraft exhaust freezing into ice crystals as they heat cold air at high altitudes. I don't know if that makes sense. You didn't have a weather that allows for cloud formation. Those clouds should dispel on their own, right? Once again, maybe I don't know enough about how the weather works, so I could be talking out of my ass again. But I don't think that's a possibility. However, the declassified files and former President Johnson's own warrants have revealed new evidence that the US was in a Cold War battle to master weather control technology before the Soviet Union. Records disclosed to the public after the Vietnam War showed the US hit clouds with a toxic substance called lead iodide in order to increase rainfall near the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Ho Chi Minh! Causing landslides and making the road impassable. Yeah, that's Vietnam for you. Lead iodide is toxic to humans because it contains lead. I keep saying lead, it's lead because it's the material, not the verb. Lead iodide contains lead, that makes sense. Heavy bits of lead, like in the song. Which can cause lead poisoning with symptoms such as headaches, fatigue, abdominal pain, neurological damage, kidney problems, and developmental issues in children. Haven't we seen some of this in recent times, all around the Western world? Not saying it's the cause, but it's a little bit strange. There's no safe level of exposure according to health authorities. Wigginton, an environmental researcher for 30 years, claimed that the conspiracy surrounding chemtrails was not only true, but has actually crippled the Earth's ability to naturally overcome the pollution caused by humans. Maybe it's also related to the lowering quality of food. I mean, if you can't fuck with the soil, that makes sense. And these chemicals could fuck with the quality of soil after all. Instead of lab tests and rain samples, photos of specialist planes carrying these chemicals, government documents, and whistleblower testimony all show clear evidence that the secret program has attempted to weaponize weather. There's also the strange mechanism that, in theory, can produce earthquakes called the HARP machine, something like that. I've heard of it, but I'm not too knowledgeable. Some tests estimated that airliners allegedly equipped with secret nozzles and tanks on their wings, filled with aluminium, barium, manganese, graphene, and various polymers, have between 40 and 60 million tons of nanoparticles in the sky annually. Truly disgusting. You have nanoparticles in your lungs, and you have microplastics in your bones. There's no fixing this. Just look at people, you'll see them. You're too busy with your health, look at your phones. They're on contrails. Contrails dissipate behind the planes immediately. Contrails stay in, disperse out, blocking the sky and creating overcast conditions. Wake up, sheeple! Johnson, despite the Biden, is the most evil person to ever hold in the office of POTUS. That's crazy. How many conspiracy theories have been proven real this year. It's still March! What's going on with this? That's truly insane. And it was kind of funny, a couple of weeks ago, when the Iran conflict started, they were trying to push this narrative about aliens. Look, it's Obama talking about how aliens are real. People were like, yeah, we don't care. What's going on with Iran? What's going on with Epstein? That's really funny to me. That's really funny to me. Every single time they try to push out the Isle of Mouse, people are like, yeah, I don't care. Huh. How funny. What about interdimensional goblins? I'm all interested in them. Are they hot? It's time for goblin correction. Some people will enjoy that, I bet. In bed with the goblin. Alex Jones, truly visionary. And to end for today, we can end with something spicy. But not enough to get us banned, I hope. What is hentai? The niche porn that the world can't stop watching. Niche? Maybe for you. This is an archive because it has a better formatting for this, so I can just skip some images. Don't mind me. People the world over are hot for hentai. Hentai, form of animated pornography, has been the top search term on Pornhub for the past several years, claiming the #1 spot in 2024 and 2025, according to the Not Safe for Work site. Further, searches for the term have increased 8% over the past half-decade, suggesting an ever-expanding fan base keeping cartoons mod on top. Subgenre of manga anime. Subgenre, I guess that is correct, I suppose. Hentai is characterized by explicit imagery, stylized characters, and fantastical, sometimes controversial scenarios. The word itself is an abbreviation of the Japanese hentai seiyuku, which translates to perversion. And globally speaking, cartoon perversion prevails. Don't look at that. I guess this is fine enough. Within Pornhub, the term encompasses everything from video game characters and anime-inspired cosplay to fully rendered 3D animations and beyond. I don't think cosplay should be in hentai, that's actually flashy. It doesn't count. Hentai has sustained growing as the world's top search term since 2021 highlights this unique genre's global appeal. Alex Keg, Vice President of Brand and Community at Pornhub, told the Post. The history of hentai dates back to the 17th century in Japan's Edo period, when erotic illustrations known as shunga were widely circulated and depicted scenes like a naked woman in the carnal embrace of two octopuses. Nothing has changed. Featuring an ever-expanding landscape of kink, modern hentai depicts fantastical and exaggerated sex acts, and includes characters with well-distorted body parts. Like normal porn, it's better. Wizards prefer this unexpected porn category. Pornhub reports that GMC views this category 171% more than any other age group. That's crazy. Maybe Zoomers are okay. Well, it depends. If they do watch too much, that's also bad. A generational leaning that Neil believes reflects their increasingly digital existence. Many younger audiences already engage with anime, gaming, and digital fandom culture, and counter hentai is a natural extension of the media they already consume. Whereas older generations were introduced to sexual media primarily through live-action formats. Live action! Finally, a good live action, they're not even good. Dr. Rachel Needle, a licensed psychologist and the co-director of Modern Sex Therapy Institute, told the Post. She shared that in a landscape driven by rapid consumption and algorithmic discovery, the novelty, extremity, and creativity of hentai are particularly appealing to young adults. You say that as if normal porn is not even worse than that. By the way. Because at least there's a degree of separation, because it's just 2D, right? So it's probably a little bit more okay than normal porn. Additionally, evidence suggests that younger generations are more attuned to ethical concerns around the production of erotic content. In kind and kink, many hentai fans argue that the content is safer and less shame-inducing than IRL porn. Generation humans are being filmed / exploited. Not entirely incorrect, but it still has a negative effect on your brain though. Globally, the viewership skews toward men, with Pornhub revealing that the global audience breakdown is 38.5% female and 61.5% male. However, when comparing viewing patterns between genders, Women are 43% more likely than men to watch hentai. That's strange. Some experts maintain that hentai is less likely to cause body issues in viewers as opposed to AI or airbrush human porn. Live-action sexual imagery, such pornography, tends to shape expectations around real human bodies and sexual performance because viewers are watching actual people. That can lead to direct comparisons with oneself or one's partner, said Needle. Yes, that's one of the... Aside from addiction and all that, it is also a big issue with pornography. You will see people being in a really rough situation with their own body when they're just perfectly normal humans, or even birthing average, which is kind of strange. Porn is not real after all. It doesn't depict real people. You need to understand that. Experts like Needle maintain that the appeal of hentai is driven by a combination of psychological, technological, and cultural factors. Hentai occupies a unique psychological space. It removes the constraints of physical reality, allowing for fantasy exploration that live-action content simply can't replicate. But boy, do they try sometimes. Needle explained. Yeah, it's nothing really spicy here. That kind of looks like Ray Earth. Funny enough. It's probably because of the outfits. From a psychological perspective, hentai allows people to explore fantasies that may feel taboo, unrealistic, or difficult to engage with in real life. Because the characters are animated, viewers may experience fewer social or moral innovations when consuming the material, explained Needle. Is that a positive? I'm not quite sure. Because cartoons know no bounds, be it legal or physical, hentai occupies a limitless space where anything can and does happen, offering fantasy fulfillment rather than a mirror of reality. From the genteel eroticism of shunga to the garish carnival of today's hentai, a common thread persists, embracing sexuality's imaginative side. People are just horny, it's not a tip. And they ask, what if? It has with withdrawn dreams or nightmares and chained by physical reality. When Yapping Anderson in her pop culture history of hentai. To be fair, we've seen it doesn't really have to do with hentai, but it's worse in this case. Some people cannot tell reality from fiction, which is kind of a big problem. And they do believe the things that you see in 2D animations are also true and real, which is a different issue altogether. That's why you have so much fetishism about the stuff, and to some extent, strange propaganda. And Nightmare Thief has noted that within the hentai category, female characters are often a hybridization of the adulting and child, where tiny frames, hairless bodies, and childlike expressions are coupled with, if you just kiss the bung, cartoonishly large breasts. Okay, now you're starting to make shit here. Hairless bodies, that's just Japanese people, they don't really have a lot of hair. That's normal in Japan. And Japanese people don't seem to be really that big, but everybody likes big tits. That is correct. Aesthetic is consistent with the theme of sexy innocence that pervades hentai content. Within the genre, content that sexualizes girls is called lolicon or loli. Nature's nod to Vladimir Nabokov's novel Lolita. Sexualization of boys is dubbed shotacon. Are you gonna tell me it's illegal? It's still fiction though. With the target, the hentai encourages adults to see minors, especially girls, as legitimate targets of sexual violence. God fucking damn it, it's fiction, man. I play GTA, therefore I also want to kill prostitutes. Is this the conclusion where I have to take from this? It's not the point you think it is. However, Neil notes that consumption of this content does not necessarily beget action. Kinda funny, because the people that are against lolly stuff are usually the most degenerate and the most prone to actual CP. Funny enough. Even with fictional sexual content does not automatically translate into the same time out those scenarios in real life, said Needle. In many cases, fantasy media can function as a psychological outlet for curiosity or imagination, without crossing into behavior, she continued. I played Dragon Quest, so I'm gonna go out there killing slimes and casting spells. It's finally time! If only. That'll fix a lot of things. Still, she announced that when it comes to Russell, the brain responds to cues and doesn't distinguish between real and wrong. I just don't believe you. I just don't believe you. That's not so much the exposition to lolly content, I believe, but the other exposure to just explicit content. That's gonna fuck with your brain. That's probably the main issue here. Into exploits this by amplifying those cues beyond anything nature produces. Exaggerated proportions and impossible scenarios hit the reward circuitry harder in some people than others. Yes, people are retarded. Congratulations. Share that over time, some viewers may require increasingly intense or unusual stimuli to achieve the same level of arousal. Stop consuming porn 24/7. That's gonna fuck with your brain and your dick. And not in a good way. This phenomenon can contribute to form of desensitization or escalation for certain individuals, although this is not universal and depends greatly on personal habits, frequency of use, and individual psychology. Getting to know my character is just weird. It's comment. Yes, it must be afraid of real women. Damn. Back in my day, we used to use interactive sock puppets. That is a fan of, what's the name? Peggy? Peggy the Pig? I think that may be correct. You will be shamed for what you like. What else is new, right? What else is new? These normies will never understand. It's called hentai and it's art. Okay? But yeah, I do agree that overuse of explicit content is always a negative. So do not. I would agree probably that code is in general not that bad in comparison, but overuse is still overuse, man. Not a great idea. Anyway, with that strange article, I guess we can end for today. Plan for next week, I haven't finalized everything. So I need to check a bunch of stuff today. I'm gonna do it later. So I can get the schedule up tomorrow. So Monday, we'll be starting Dragon Quest 6 for the Nintendo DS. On Thursday, we'll finish Jiron Jiruet, or Jiron Jiruet, the Dungeon Sorrow ROM hack we've been playing. On Saturday, of course, we'll have more yapping like this. But on Wednesday, I don't know yet. I'm going to check how the fuck is Full Life Universe running. We may need to check that as a one-off. If not, surely gonna be some other type of one-off. Maybe randomizer, probably not. Maybe short game, maybe a ROM hack. Maybe come up with a collection of demos or all games too. That kind of stuff. Need to finalize that it's... Not that I haven't been doing stuff, but I've been doing other stuff. Please understand. Anyway. So, thank you for coming. I hope you had some fun. Schedule up tomorrow, as usual. Dragon Quest 6 on Monday. And until then, you know the rules. Hold up, there we go. Until then, you know the rules. I understand people want to get into spicy content, but please be mindful. Do not screw yourself over. Because fixing that, it's not gonna be easy. And take care.